presentation is on gender communication stereotypes in a workplace setting. So we're going to start out with critical thinking. The 4 basic elements of an argument is the issue, claim, evidence, and then the argument. So the issue for my topic is gender issues in communication, and then stereotypes held towards men and women. And then what's the claim? Both genders communicate differently, which can lead to stereotypes. So the evidence to back the claim. So overall, men and women view the purpose of conversations differently. So women use communication to enhance their social connections with other employees / relationships. It's more often that women try and build relationships with their coworkers than men. Women's appearance towards conversations. So when I say appearance, it's how they're coming off when they're communicating to others. So women seem more expressive and they seem more attentive and polite. They create intimate bonds with each other by talking about common problems / issues that both of the parties are facing. And then theorists suggest that women's approach to communication is a disadvantage when they're interacting with others because women speak more attentively while men are more assertive. So men's approach to communication, their approach to communication is to mostly exert dominance and to achieve definite outcomes. Their appearance, so how they're coming off, is more assertive and power-hungry than women. And then they also try and establish their status and dominance in relationships, like women who are trying to make connections with other people. And how they want to come off is they want to leave the impression of men of becoming more confident, and how they communicate comes off as more of their adequate leaders than how women come off. So what are the stereotypes towards men and women? So women talk more than men. Women like to interrupt others more than men do. And men are more conceited towards others' feelings than women. So for the first stereotype that women talk more than men, personally, I don't talk more than like an average guy does. That's just like how my personality is. So not all women talk more than men. It just depends on a person's personality. Yes, more women talk a lot, and I guess that's just because they have a lot to talk about to others and they just enjoy talking. And there's also some men that just enjoy talking a lot more than other men do, and sometimes more than other women do. The second one, women like to interrupt others more than men do. I mean, personally, yes, I've seen more women interrupt others more than men, but I can also see men doing that too, just so they can get their point across, because everyone's point deserves to be listened to. The third one, men are more conceited towards others' feelings than women. No, that can go definitely both ways. Women can also not care about other people's feelings just as much as men can. It doesn't go one way, it goes both ways. So the argument towards my claim, which, going back, the claim is gender issues in communication and then the stereotypes held towards them. So from the evidence that was given, I gave both approaches to women's approach to communication and men's. It comes off as, yes, women do like to be more tentative and polite and try and create intimate bonds with other people, which can also not come off as approach to being a leader, while men try to leave their impression that they are more confident and come off as leaders, but all of this evidence that was given will come off as stereotypes that all women like to do is create those bonds with people and not prove that they can be leaders while men can be leaders. And it's not saying also that all men are have the personality to become leaders, because they all don't. Okay, so the fallacies associated with gender communication. So my first one talks about Hillary Clinton's likability, and the link is attached there to show the full article. And the fallacy that I attached with it is an ad hominem. So I'm going to go over pretty much what stood out in the article to me that relates to the topic. So when women run for office, we haven't had a woman president yet. And this argument, or the article will show, or it gives a lot of evidence on why women haven't been a president, and why there's also not that many women in higher executive offices. So pretty much that women face a double standard when running for office, unlike men. According to Time magazine, which is where I got the article from, there's a reason why there's less than 5% of Fortune 1,000 CEOs, only 6 of the nation's 550 governors, and less than 17% of mayors are women. So women, more often than men, if they're going to seek executive office, they have to prove their likability enough for viewers to like them. Men don't have to face a capability test, unlike women. Men are pretty much assumed to be tough enough that they will do fine in office and make the right choices, while women are not. Because we are seen as soft, while men are not seen as, cushiony teddy bears. And I'm not saying that, all women are, but that's the stereotype that we are given, is that we are too expressive and too tentative towards everyone and ourselves. Men are assumed to handle the job better than women are. And then lastly, the likability and qualifications are tied together in voters' minds. Well, that is not in a voter's mind for a man. All it is in a voter's mind for a man is if they can get the job done or not. The second fallacy talks about what women do 48% more often than men do. This one appeals to tradition. So the article talks about a consulting practice that often holds large events in a group style. Participants are seated at tables of 6. Majority of teams that work there are software engineering and manufacturing in an environment often dominated by men. There's often only 1 to 2 women at a table. It goes on to say that because participants are 16 to 20% women, you would think women are selected to be the recorder no more than 20% of the time. Except it actually comes down to women taking notes about 85% of the time. So women are expected to take notes in the role of... So why does this happen? And who ends up taking... So it comes down to my point of who ends up taking notes a majority of the time, and it's women, because women are expected to be the caretaker and have administrative support roles. And why does this happen? Because it's a historical thing, and that's how women have always shown to show their role in a workplace environment is, how often do you see when you go into a hospital and you check in with the receptionist, and it's a man? Because every time I go to a hospital, or clinicals, for instance, the person working up front, that's doing scheduling is always a woman. I have never once seen a man at all of the hospitals that I've had clinicals at and have gone to for an appointment. There has never been a man working up front. It has always been a woman, which that's not a bad thing, but it's another stereotype that women have. Is that's another thing that, like, that's all we're good for. And it's not like men can do it, because they can perfectly do it, be able to do it, but they just don't. And no one really knows why this is the way it is. And no one really thinks to question it. Okay, so now on to deductive reasoning. So just to go over what deductive reasoning is it begins with a general statement, and then there's a first premise, and then a second premise, and then the inference, which is the conclusion. So my deductive argument example is, Sarah, the lead for human resources, sent an email to every employee about a new job opening in the firm. In the skills sections listed on the job demands, it says that public speaking skills are an important qualifier for the position. In the email, it then says that they are all requiring all candidates to make an oral presentation on an already selected topic in order to decide who gets the position. So the major premise is the public speaking skills are an important qualifier for the position. The minor premise is all employees who receive the email, and then the conclusion, all employees must make an oral presentation in order to be accepted as a candidate for that position. For inductive reasoning, just to go over what it is, it makes extensive generalizations from specific data. So my argument for this one is, Chloe notices every time she works with Nick, he will barely speak to her even if it's about work-related topics, and completely avoids being around her. The other day when they were both working with their other coworker Clay, Nick's personality sparks interest in having conversations with him and even going on break with him. As much as Chloe has tried to talk and interact with Nick at work, she has decided to not try and show interest towards him anymore. So the major premise in this is Nick's actions towards Chloe. The minor premise is Nick's actions towards Chloe and how Clay interacts with Nick. And then the conclusion, because of how Nick was acting towards Chloe, Chloe decided it's best not to show interest towards Nick anymore. So my inference and communication related to my topic. And then just to go back about my deductive reasoning. So this example is just showing how each gender for the employees shows like their public speaking skills would be the best for the presentation. Okay, back to the inference and communication. So it's used to make conclusions off of evidence given to us. Not all inferences are correct, which can lead to incorrect conclusions. So my inference example, Kate, a flight attendant for a commercial airline, was working on a flight headed to Minneapolis. As she was making her rounds to passengers on the plane, she asked a male passenger if he needed anything and was very dismissive towards her. Kate went to tell her male co-worker and told him what happened and asked to go see if he needed anything. The male passenger was very polite and respectful towards her co-worker. Later on in the flight, she tried again to see if his response would be different towards her, and he was still dismissive. She figured it was best for the rest of the flight if she didn't approach him anymore. So what was the problem? The problem was Kate was dealing with a dismissive passenger, and those are never fun to deal with. Her approach towards that was to have her male coworker see if he could do anything different to try and approach him, seeing if the interaction would be better off, and it was. So the solution was for her to have her coworker see what he could do. Which, to me, that's a good way to go and solve the problem. If what you're doing isn't working, then go and try to have someone else go and do it to see what would happen. And towards the end, were the inferences correct? Yes, they were correct, because she tried again to see if his response would be different and if he wasn't dismissive this time. And he was. So she figured it's best if she just leaves him alone and just has her other coworker deal with him. That way she does not have to face dealing with him anymore. And then these are my references. And that